Hey, this is JD here. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and hit the like button and you'll get notified when I put a new video on. What do we have here? We have a Seagull 1963 chronograph. Beautiful, beautiful watch. It's got a very lightly tanned dial. I'd call it coffee. And it's got indices, as you can see, 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 with indice markers in between those numbers. And it's got sub-indices counting down 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, and those are seconds. This chronograph runs at 21.6, I'll say. So it's a 21.6 chronograph, 21,600 beats per hour. And that's 5 beats within those seconds indices. So I'll show you the movement in a second. It's got a gorgeous movement. The red dial you're seeing in the center is the chronograph seconds counter. And if you look down into the right-hand side, you see the chronograph minute counter, and the minutes go to 30 on that counter. The indices, back to the indices for a second. Those indices are gold painted indices, so gold colored indices. Very beautiful, stunning look on it. On the left-hand side, you have a subdial, which is the seconds hand, turning around there, as you can see. So it goes from 0 to 60, straight up. And it is a 21 joule chronograph. If you look over on the right-hand side, you see 2 pushers. One pusher on the chronograph, the one up top here, is for starting the chronograph. So let's start the chronograph here. I pushed the other one the same time I hit that one, so that's why that funky movement we have. I had this and this. Never do that. And what they say, and when you're pushing a chronograph hand, because there's kind of a heart cam inside the chronograph, you can damage the watch if you keep snapping the chronograph when the chronograph seconds hand is on the bottom and it has to ride all the way back up to the top. So what you do is you wait until it gets to the 12 o'clock position. I've heard people say that either at the 4 or 8 is fine, but I'd go a little bit higher so you're not causing stress to the chronograph when you push those buttons. So you take that, you wait till it gets to the top, you press this top button again. I'll try to avoid this other button here so I don't get that funky movement that I got before. And you hit that button again, like that. That stops the chronograph, and then this button here returns the chronograph back to 0. So, and you press that, and these buttons are very smoothly operating. So they seem to be very nicely cammed, and there's a heart cam inside that causes these chronograph seconds hands and minute hands to snap back to 12 o'clock or 0, I'd say. So also the hands are blued, which looks very nice. So blued subdial hands, seconds hand in the chronograph, 30 minute hand. And the case, the overall case is a 40 millimeter case, and it fits my wrist really well. If you have a smaller wrist, you would do a 38 millimeter case. The time setting, I'm not going to bother, but it's normal, usual time setting. You pop this out. And you just set the time. It's pretty simple. This is not an automatic watch, it's a manual watch, so you actually have to wake up in the morning and wind this watch. So if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be waking up. So wind that watch in the morning. It takes about 20 turns on your hand, and those turns are probably half turns when I turn it. And most watch mainspring barrels will turn around 7 times, I believe, before they run out. Now there's some debate about the power on this watch when you're running the chronograph. So if I snap the chronograph on again, does that reduce the amount of power I have to go 38 hours on the reserve for power? So let's just push this button again, and I avoided the other button as I went, and I'll just stop it in a second. So as that turns, is it reducing the amount of power left or remaining on the watch, and will it only run for a shorter period of time? Press that again and then hit reset. I've got some advice from other watch aficionados out there, and they're telling me that it doesn't matter. but it might, if you're running it right down to zero, because of the additional force that the second hand and the gearings, the chronograph hands and the gearings might cause on the overall gear train, it might stop before it would run down to what it would normally run down to from the mainspring barrel. But 38 hours is the reserve on this. It probably could do 40. Not sure, but they never overspec or underspec. So I'm going to just turn this watch around here, and let's see if my camera can do me right and refocus. So stainless steel case. It's a very beautiful watch, very beautiful. Sapphire crystal on this, and turning it slowly so you can see the crystal bulge. So there's the slightly domed sapphire crystal on this watch. The watch is, I don't remember the thickness, I think 16 millimeters maybe, but I've been wearing this, so I was a bad boy and didn't clean it up before this video, but there's the movement. So that is one heck of a gorgeous movement on this watch. So this movement is the Seagull 1963 movement. Now the reason I hear they called it 1963 is that the Chinese government commissioned the Seagull watch company to build these watches for the military, and they did that. So these watches are highly accurate. If you look at the, I'm going to use my tweezers here, which I've always used because I am a watchmaker. So this is the balance cock over here, and there's the jewel, Inca block cap jewel. So you would open that, take the jewel out, and then oil it and put it back. So this is the balance on the watch ticking away, and this is the hairspring that you can see going around in a circle here. So it's got a balance, and you would regulate this watch with this lever right here. So you just turn this lever. If I make this lever move in this direction, the watch speeds up because I'm shortening the virtual length of that hairspring. If I move it this way towards the stud, I'm lengthening it, and the watch slows down. So that's how you would regulate one of these watches. Unless you're very brave or a trained watchmaker, don't jump in here and start moving that, because if you touch that hairspring, or if a piece of dirt gets on that hairspring, or oil or anything, that's going to change the actual beat of this watch. So it will go either, if you dirty it up, it'll go a lot slower, right? So that's how you know if your watch is getting dirty. By the way, if it's I said slower, I meant faster. If the watch speeds up, that means the hairspring is likely dirty because it's not vibrating at the frequency it's supposed to vibrate. So, and I said 21,600 beats per hour for this watch. So you can see this watch moving, the gears moving here, and you can see some special gears that are part of the chronograph feature. So these gears, I'm not going to go through the names of these gears, but I believe this is called the clutch gear here. So, and you can see how it's meshing with this gear here. And usually on a watch here, you would have the balance over here, and then underneath the balance, if you look really closely here, you can see this little moving object. Well, that's the pallet fork on this watch, and it's contacting with the impulse jewel here to actually push the balance in clockwise and counterclockwise. So that's how that works, and that's all part of the fourth wheel that's under here. And there's a wheel on top of the fourth wheel. That's this wheel here that interacts with the clutch gear, and then the clutch gear. When I hit the clutch, when I depress this button here, I believe I got to think upside down here. When I press this button up here, that would engage the clutch wheel, which would in fact engage that chronograph seconds hand, which is right here. And like I said, there's a cam to snap that back. And when you hit the snapback button on the watch, so if I just turn this over again very carefully, and you'll see how this looks with the see-through back, which is very nice. I did not take off this little blue sticker yet. I need to pick that off the watch. So this button here is starting the chronograph. So I'll press this button and you'll see what happens. So let's turn this around again and get it in focus. So we press this button and the chronograph will start, and you'll see the action of this gear, of the cam gear. Now you see on the bottom that gear moving here, and that's gonna move that cam gear to move the second wheel over. And there we go. And now you can see the center wheel, which is the seconds wheel on this chronograph, moving away. So let me get my my tweezers in here. So there you go. There's your fourth wheel interacting with the clutch wheel, and then driving this seconds wheel. I looked at the teeth on this wheel, so they designed these teeth so they mesh perfectly. But I believe when I look at this under a microscope, these teeth here are, I believe, twice as many as the teeth on the clutch wheel. So anyway, that's how that works. So actually this wheel moves forward towards center, engages the clutch wheel in the center, and then that starts the chronograph moving, right? And this wheel actually is interacting with the wheel that's engaging the minute wheel on the chronograph, which is, as you can see, there's the minutes wheel right there. And if I flip this around, that's right underneath this wheel here, and it's being engaged on the chronograph right in there. So in the minute wheel, you'll see as this goes around in a circle, there's a spring that's touching the minute wheel right here. I mean, this is pretty close up, but the spring here actually ensures this minute wheel advances, and it clicks when it advances. It goes click like that, so it advances in a clicking fashion when the seconds wheel gets to the 12 o'clock position, right? So that goes around, and if you look at that, we'll wait 2 seconds. I know it's annoying, but bear with me, and you'll see this click when it goes around. Let's wait 2 seconds and see if I can capture this clicking as it goes around. So it just steps. It's more like a step function, and this little spring here ensures that it's stepping and not just floating around, so keeps it in place. So let's check this out. When's this going to happen? Come on, make it happen. Do it, do it, do it, do it. And there we go. Did you see that? That's pretty cool. So that's doing that. And then when I hit this, the button on the side again, I should have cleaned this watch off, but maybe I can take my fingers here and just wipe it down just a bit. There we go. Look at that. So didn't help. So when I hit this button again, the chronograph button again, you'll see it disengage the clutch from the center wheel, and you do that, and I'm going to make sure that this is at center here so I don't screw it up a bit. So it's moving to, it's down at the 6 o'clock, 7, 8, 9. So let me count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then press the button again, and now you can see how that move the clutch wheel back away from the center wheel nicely, and it's still riding on the upper wheel here, that's or the upper gear here, that's part of the fourth wheel on the watch, and so you can see that how that disengaged the center wheel. Now I want to snap that back into position, so I'm going to be pressing this button here, and I'll just touch it a little bit, and you'll see the movement down below there. So the movement is right down there, and that's going to make the heart of this gear here. There's a heart underneath this gear. You can just barely see it right here, and that's a cam, so it's shaped like a heart, and that'll snap that one back. And if you can see right there, right underneath there, there's another, the edge of that is another cam, and that cam, pressing this button will cause those two cams to snap back to the center position of the heart. So where the heart goes inward on both sides, that's where it snaps back. So if I press this down, let me see, make sure I get the right button. I think it's this button here, right? There we go. So that's the action right there, and you can see this lever here snap right back, and these two arms here, this arm here and this arm here, are both riding on those cams, and so their job is actually to push those cams so those wheels snap right back to center. So that's about the simplest explanation I can give on how these chronographs work. And there's, I believe, two main types of chronographs, and this type of chronograph has, if you look on the very bottom here, when I click the chronograph button over here, I think over here, you'll see this step forward once. Okay, so that's how that works. So see if I can do that again. So I'm going to make sure I get the right button here. Is this button here? So everything's upside down. There we go. You see that step forward and turn, and I'll stop that again. And this lever here, these two levers move away from the seconds wheel and the other wheel. Press it again, that, advances it, takes it away, and then when I want to center it, you'll see that arm that looks like a bit of a funky looking Viking axe go forward and hit those cams and then cause them to center. So I'm told that, you know, on these movements, this is it says when I bought it that it was a genuine 1963, which is the brand, as I mentioned earlier, movement. So, and as I may or may not have said earlier, you got to remember what you say in these videos. The Chinese government commissioned the Seagull watch company to make these watches for the military. So this is a pretty tough movement if it's an original Seagull 1963 movement. I am not sure what Plan B means in the bottom here. Like, what does Plan B mean? Plus, I'll have to look up what these symbols are on the side. But this watch goes down to 5 bars, and each bar is 10 meters. So that's 5 times 10. Let me think. That's 50. So that's 5 bars, 50 meters, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful watch. And the movement is just gorgeous. Let me just see if I can move this up a bit and get it to focus closely. Okay, there you go. That is a gorgeous, gorgeous movement. And you can see the teeth on that little tiny teeth on the center wheel, baby teeth, I'll call it. And then obviously this is just a thing of a gorgeous watch. The jewels that you see on this watch, bring this back down again. When they say they're 21 jewels, I'm not going to do the jewel count, but this is a jewel. So it looks like a Canadian Tim Hortons donut. So you've got a jewel here, and these were rubies, but they're all synthetic nowadays. This is likely synthetic. So you've got jewels here, and their job is just simply to reduce the friction. So the gear pivot goes through the jewel hole, and these are oiled, lightly oiled, I'll say, because you don't want the oil to ride down the shaft or migrate to other places of the watch. So you have a jewel there, you have another jewel over here, right? So, and over here you have the cap jewel for the balance of for the mainspring, or sorry, the cap jewel here of the balance. I'm gonna stop yabba dabba doing here, and then below, right below my tweezer there, you can see a small jewel. That's the jewel where the pivot for the pallet fork goes through there. And if you count up all those, the pallet fork actually has 2 jewels, and they're like square jewels that are going out, that are ticking back and forth and being moved by the escapement wheel underneath this plate here. And so if you were to do a jewel count, you'd count 21 jewels on the watch, which is atypical. And if you look at the old pocket watches that were railroad grade pocket watches, typically had 21 jewels. You do have watches which I've repaired that have 23 jewel pocket watches, and you do have other like pocket watches. We do have watches that have 23, 24 jewels, and functionally 21 jewels is all you need. But when you're adding clutch gears and stuff like that over here, you may find extra jewels. So that's that story. So these are blued screws. So these probably are not blued the way you'd blue a screw. So the way you normally do that is you'd be heating these screws up to a certain temperature with a torch, or in the past it would be with a candle, and you'd be throwing them into straw to let them cool, and they'd end up being blue color, right? So the actual metal turns blue color, so the steel turns blue. So, and there's a steel used for making the balance staffs on these watches that's right under here, and it's called blued steel. So if you've watched my other videos, you've actually seen me make a balance staff, which is a tricky job. It's the summer right now. When the winter comes, I'll likely be doing more of that, as I may have the weekends free to actually get deep into my lathe work again. What else do I have here? So the crown, I've heard some criticism about this crown being a little bit too small. It is a bit tricky. It would be nice if it was a little bit bigger, maybe out a little further to allow you to grab it a little bit better if you have big hands. I have big hands, so that's not, it's not great, but I'm going to give you another close-up of this movement, though, because I think it's just such a gorgeous movement. I'll see how close my camera can zoom here. So that's not too bad there. So there's a close-up of the movement again. And let's just concentrate on that for a second, or focus on it. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous movement. I like the fact they provided a very big viewing window for this. I suspect that's mineral glass on top, and not a sapphire crystal. Although the top the crystal on the top is a sapphire crystal. So I'm going to turn this around again, and let's look at the this gorgeous watch from the top again as it's running. So as you can see, it's almost time for me to go for coffee. Again, a stainless steel case. I managed to find a really nice strap for this watch. I'm just going to ride the watch down a bit to show you the strap. So I put my Le Mans strap on here. So this is like a race car driving strap. The lug-to-lug on this is 20 millimeters. So this is the distance between here, and that's 20 millimeters. And this strap that I bought, and I recommend this, came with the quick release. So if you look at the strap here, this little button here, you pull that forward and it just rides that pin in here towards the center, and it's a quick release for the strap, so you can take it on and off. And I do like the threading, the white threading on the strap. So the strap again is a tanned strap, and it's got the racing holes on it, and it has a typical buckle on it. But I do like the threading here that's on that strap. It's nice, and that's a wide buckle. This wide buckle rides into these wide strap holes and actually works really well. And as you can see, there is where I'm riding it in. So I got a pretty wide wrist, and the strap is all leather. Very nice strap. There we go. And I recall the strap is an Alpine strap. So if you look at this, it's a 20. So 20 millimeters, and it's an Alpine strap. So if you just Google or go to AliExpress, because the prices are excellent there, and look for Alpine all leather straps. This strap is, this will last longer than me. So they're going to dig the hole, they're going to throw me into the hole, and they're going to pour in a shitload of watches, and then they're going to pour in a shitload of watch tools, and they're going to pour in a shitload of straps, and they're going to probably pour in a stereo microscope and some other stuff. So that'll be the hole. So I'm going to make sure that I put in my will that hole is deeper than 6 feet, because I want to make sure there's a lot of room for all my other crap. So I hope YouTube doesn't get mad at me for using the S word. So, but I do say these videos are not for kids, because kids would go, "Oh my God, this is boring." So that's it. So these are nice blue hands, a red second hand, gold indices on this, going all the way around. Just a really nice function on this, very simple function, and a very plain looking but elegant looking face. So I can wear this with a suit, a business suit. I do not want to wear this watch when I do sporting events. If I'm out in the water, I'm not doing a lot of sporting events these days, but if I'm off fishing or I'm out in the water or golfing, I likely won't want to wear a watch like this. It's a mechanical chronograph. And another note, one more note before I end this video, is that this watch could be thicker, but it doesn't have the rotor on it, so you're allowed to make a thinner watch without that rotor, but you have to manually wind it. And again, my note is, if you're too lazy to manually wind a watch, then you shouldn't be allowed to buy this watch. There should be a test where they ask you questions about what time you wake up in the morning, what time you go to bed, and how hard you work, and how long you actually sit in a chair and just watch TV. If all those durations are wrong, then they should reject you in buying this watch. Say, okay, you can't buy the watch because you're too darn lazy to own a watch where you actually have to wind it. So I'll take that blue covering off that crown a little bit later on, because you guys are probably thinking, why is he leaving that on? So there it is. There's the Seagull 1963 watch, chronograph, gorgeous. I'm going to stop yapping again. I made a video previously about this, but I just had to get more specific about the movement. And I guess the last thing we should show is the movement. So being a watchmaker, I want you guys to have a good look at this gorgeous movement and just draw that into your head and say, man, the people who designed this were absolutely brilliant.